Hey Jerry, have you ever wondered why we're here? Why, for democracy, of course. No, of course I know that, but I mean, like, what historical events led us here? Well, we had the First Galactic War. No, but like before that, like way back. I guess the furthest back I know is the last Great War that brought us wonderful managed democracy. But like, why did that war happen? Something had to have happened before that. Frank, are you questioning the story of the Super Earth government? Because that's treason! Democracy officer! Oh god, please no, don't throw me in the airlock of managed democracy. Have you ever wondered how Super Earth became the galactic superpower that it is today? Or how managed democracy spread around the galaxy? Well, if you're thinking it's anything other than the approved story of the Super Earth government, you're committing treason right now. You should probably watch your back. But I'm also here to tell you, you're right if you're thinking it's not just the approved story. Today, we are covering the big one, the entire history of Super Earth and how we got to where we are today in the Second Galactic War. Now, this is going to be a lot of undemocratic, non-Super Earth approved nonsense, so buckle in. But to talk about Super Earth, we need to talk about normal Earth first, because Earth started out as a hot ball of magma. Actually, this is a little too far back. We're going to speed ahead. All you really need to know is Australia has weird animals, Julius Caesar was the leader of Rome, and the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Alright, on to where Super Earth began. Now, Super Earth has restricted a lot of information on how it became what it is today. It was all because of something called the Last Great War, which was not a galactic war like the First or Second Galactic Wars. It was contained solely to Earth. Now, we know very little about the Last Great War itself. All we really have from the Super Earth government is this map of Super Earth. Now, you'll notice a lot of similarities and differences from a map of normal Earth here. Similarities, the continents look the same. Differences, literally everything else. You'll notice that on this map, you have these dashed zones that are called the Last Great War Wasteland Zones, which sound like a horrible place to take a vacation to. You also have restricted areas where it looks like they're saving the last rainforest to remain, and you have megacities and sectors. Now, these sectors don't exactly split along traditional lines of where the continents were, so this is an interesting one here to dig into. And breaking down these 7 sectors we've got here, let's start with Sector 1. Sector 1 contains Australia, Oceania, and Japan, and its megacity looks to be built on the Earth city of Singapore. Sector 2 contains China and a good part of Eastern Russia, and its megacity looks to be built on the city of Shanghai. You'll also notice in this area, the Great Wall has been renamed to the Great Wall of Democracy, so that's an interesting little addition there. For Sector 3, we've got a good part of Northern Europe as well as Western Russia. And you'll notice there is not Megacity 3. Sector 3 here has Prosperity City, which we'll get into why exactly that is not just Megacity 3 a little bit later. Sector 4 here contains Western and Southern Europe as well as the western half of Africa. And it does not contain England because England appears to have been destroyed. It's probably because they were eating beans on toast and stuff. I don't know what they're eating over there. But for Megacity 4, it looks to be built on the old city of Brussels. Now, Sector 5 contains Eastern Africa, as well as a lot of the Middle East and India, and Megacity 5 looks to be built on Jerusalem. For Sector 6, we've got Southern and Central America, and their megacity looks to be built on modern-day Buenos Aires. For our final sector, we've got Sector 7, which contains most of North America, and its megacity is built on what looks to be New York. You'll also notice Yellowstone has been renamed to Superstone Park. But with that out of the way, let's sit back over to the interesting spot of Prosperity City in Sector 3. Why is this Prosperity City and not just Megacity 3? Well, more likely than not, this is the capital of Super Earth. If you don't like this video, I'm gonna deep fry and eat the flag of managed democracy. But if you subscribe to the channel, I might let you guys have a piece of the deep fried flag to try out. Now, Prosperity City is built on modern-day Stockholm, which is in Sweden. And this may make you wonder, how did Sweden become the superpower of the world and take over the entire Earth? Well, we're gonna have to start digging into why we have these Last Great War Wasteland Zones. Now, we don't know when the Last Great War happened, we don't know why it happened, we don't know exactly who it was between, but we can take a guess here and say, more likely than not, at some point in normal history, the Cold War went hot. And when this Cold War went hot, the nukes started flying, England got destroyed because of their beans, it looks like somewhere in Eastern Europe got destroyed, and pretty much all of the Arctic got nuked. Now, why did they nuke the Arctic, you may ask? That's because they were taking out their true enemy, the polar bears. That's right, polar bears were an enemy to managed democracy and had to be removed. The only way they could guarantee all the polar bears were gone? Nuke the entire Arctic. But in the middle of this was Sweden, between East and West. They were biding their time, letting the two great powers fight, and letting them take out the polar bears, their true enemy, because Sweden knew how to bring peace to Earth and take over Earth. Swedish meatballs and house music. If the polar bears were still around, would have eaten all the meatballs. Wouldn't have had any meatballs to have the party. And to have a good party, you need house music. So Sweden took back over Super Earth with their great powers of meatball and house music. That's actually all I really know about Sweden, by the way. If you want to put some Sweden fun facts in the comments, that'd be highly appreciated. Thank you. But East and West, tired from this massive war that was killing millions, said, you know what? I could sit down for a plate of Swedish meatballs. And a nice dance party sounds pretty good. We'll stop this war and listen to you, Sweden. And during this meatball dinner, Sweden introduced an idea they had to help rule the world peacefully and freedomly. And that idea was the managed democracy that we have today. Managed democracy being the form of government that was going to help humanity expand into the stars. Managed democracy was going to be based around the idea that, you know, it's a lot of hassle to vote. What if instead we had a computer survey you could fill out, and that survey would take all your needs and wants and funnel those votes into the candidate that it thinks is best? And we know this quiz works perfectly because in the last Super Earth election, the president won with like 99% of the vote, so like clearly everyone wants him. Now, if this sounds a little fishy to you, that's because, yeah, that's not a democracy. That's just the ruling class picking who wins. No election wins by 99%. So yeah, the Super Earth is just ruled by a dictatorship, more or less. Which, if you want a less goofy reason on why Sweden is now the capital of the known galaxy, that's because Airhead Studios is based in Stockholm. So, of course, they're going to pick Stockholm as their capital city in, you know, Super Earth. So, now that we know where managed democracy comes from, there's a couple more things to cover on the map quick. There's the restricted areas. The restricted areas contain the last rainforest here, as well as an emergency seed vault. The last rainforests are likely heavily protected because, you know, in the war against the polar bears, it had to happen, it had to be done. But those northern areas contained a lot of trees that were producing oxygen for Earth, and now they're all gone. So those rainforests are the last things helping keep Earth habitable. And our last restricted zone here is the emergency seed vault, which actually is a real place on normal Earth here. This is the location of the Svalbard seed vault, which contains all sorts of seeds from around the world in case, you know, natural disasters or man-made disasters wipe out a whole species of plants. They can repopulate that area, and a lot of these are crops, so they can help feed humanity in case, you know, something destroys all the corn. Well, they've got more corn up there that you can plant again and bring back the population of corn. Super Earth is likely keeping around the seed vault because, you know, they nuked half the world to destroy the polar bears, so there's probably a couple plants that need to be replaced. But also, as they're colonizing the galaxy, this seed vault here can be used to bring Earth's plants and food, you know, that people can eat to other planets around the galaxy. Wow, look at this beautiful alien world we discovered. I wonder what incredible flora and fauna it has. I want it full of corn. You know, you make a fantastic point there. Call the seed vault, Gerard. Hello, I need corn delivered to my location right now. Corn being delivered in 3 to 5 seconds. Did she say seconds? Oh my god, the corn's already here. So now we know why Super Earth itself is the way it is, but how did they expand into the galaxy? Well, after all this war, everyone sat down and focused on expanding into other planets because, you know, they kind of messed up half of Earth with the giant war. And that led to the year 2084, where the first galactic war started. Now, humanity's interactions with interstellar species were peaceful at first, but it didn't stay that way for long. First, humanity ran into the bugs, a large sentient race of, well, bugs that was thriving throughout the galaxy. At first, the bugs had no quarrel with the humans. They didn't see them as a threat. They were small, puny creatures. They looked to be there just to gather resources for themselves, which was not necessarily the same resources the bugs needed, so they figured they could coexist. However, humanity said, we need these planets that the bugs are on all for ourselves. We couldn't possibly share this. And they started trying to wipe them out. Next, humanity ran into the Illuminate, who were a very peaceful race of aliens that were far advanced to humanity as far as technology goes. Their technology almost seemed like magic compared to what the humans could do. And again, humanity initially coexisted with them and tried to make peace offerings, but as soon as humanity found, as they claim, weapons of mass destruction hidden on Illuminate planets, they decided, you know what, we gotta wipe them out. Which I've never exactly heard that justification for a war before. Oh wait. And finally, we had the cyborgs, who were an interesting enemy from the First Galactic War. The cyborgs were not an alien species. They were humans themselves that were living on Cyberstan, but it was such a harsh mining world that they started to augment themselves mechanically to be able to survive the tough mining environment. Now again, initially, humanity and the cyborgs had no quarrel because they started out as the same group, you know, humans. But eventually, Super Earth started to see the cyborgs as a bit of a threat. Maybe they're getting too technologically advanced. And it was said that the cyborgs of Cyberstan staged a bombing on Super Earth that killed thousands, and Super Earth needed to go to war with them. Now, I'm not questioning the Super Earth government here, but It's a pretty convenient thing there. I'm wondering if Super Earth kind of might have set up that bombing. I'm just saying. But for Super Earth, the First Galactic War turned out phenomenally. They pushed the bugs back to their home planet of Kepler Prime, and they were able to capture them and start using them to farm oil, because they found that as their carcasses decayed and they squished them real good, oil came out that they could use for fuel. Humanity was able to push back the Illuminati and disarm them of their weapons of mass destruction. And it's said that they were pushed back to corners of the galaxy and almost totally wiped out and left completely unarmed. And finally, the Cyborg Rebellion from Cyberstan was put down, and all the cyborgs were subjugated back to Cyberstan to resume their mining activities under the watchful eye of the Super Earth government. Now, there is no possible way any of these enemies could have ever come back to threaten Super Earth again. Everyone's back. Okay, Second Galactic War starting now. After 100 years, things started to get spicy again in the galaxy. In the year 2184, the enemies of Super Earth were back. The bugs were back, stronger and fiercer than ever, because they had escaped their farming facilities where they were being squeezed for oil after, some genetic experiments by humanity that made them, well, more vicious. The cyborgs themselves are not back, but it looks like they have built an army of complete automatons, see what I did there, to fight Super Earth on their behalf. And the Illuminati are not officially back yet, but there's been little hints in the game. They actually released them on the map for a little bit. There's leaked models and stuff, and they look like they're gonna be back fiercer than ever whenever they are added to the game. Now, since this video is about Super Earth and not about the enemies of Super Earth, which if you are interested in learning about, I have covered in other videos on my channel that I'd love if you checked out, I'm not gonna bother rehashing them here and waste your time. Instead, we have one last important thing to cover. How is Super Earth structured? How's their government structured? How's their military structured? Let's dig into that real quick. Let's start with the part everyone knows and loves, the Super Earth Armed Forces, or SEAF. First up, we've got the Super Earth Infantry Forces, who do everything to help support the war efforts. They manage the artillery sites, they're the engineers that build the buildings, they're the medics that help everyone out, they perform the logistics to keep everyone supplied. They don't get the glitz and glam the Helldivers do, but they're what truly keeps Super Earth running and controlling the galaxy. You have the Super Earth Navy, who commands all the spaceships they use to travel around the galaxy. You even have the Colonial Guard Forces, which are essentially military police. And of course, to round everything out, we have the legendary Helldivers that we know and love. And let's dig into those Helldivers a little more, because they're who we know and love. If you completed your Helldivers training, you know it was done on Mars. And it said up to 48,000 Helldivers are going to be trained every single day on Mars. And after their training is complete, they're cryogenically frozen and saved for when they're needed in battle. But not all Helldivers are frozen. Some of the legendary Helldivers, as well as top recruits, are kept in unfrozen state whether there's an emergency that breaks out, or, they need to walk in a parade and such. But let's talk about the first time the Helldivers were actually used in battle. It's said the Helldivers were first used in battle at North Man's Creek. There was a small uprising there against the government of Super Earth, and the Helldivers were sent to put it down. They did this by coming crashing down straight through the building that they were taking over with only 50 Helldivers, and this is where it's said was the first use of the Hellpod as well. But the military is not the only part of the Super Earth government, even though it sure seems like it at times. You have your democratically elected president that may or may not be a cabal of Illuminati that's actually running the Super Earth government, but that's a theory for another day. And we have a couple other non-military based government agencies. You've got the Ministry of Truth, who's essentially the propaganda machine for Super Earth. They create all the training videos, they run all the news channels, they tell people of Super Earth everything they need to know and nothing more. We have one final government agency to talk about here, the Department of Heroic Sacrifice Affairs. This department is in charge of returning, what's left of Helldivers to their families after they are bravely sacrificed in battle. Now, we don't know much about this group, but we do have a form letter that I am going to read for you because it's hilarious. Memo subject, Helldiver name, from Department of Heroic Sacrifice Affairs to partner, close relative, pet neighbor. It is with patriotic pride we inform you that Helldiver name was deployed in the major order to destroy the Terminid Supercali of Meridia. They fought valiantly for liberty and sacrificed themselves in a heroic act of bravery, friendly fire, unavoidable spaghettification. Their actions will surely reverberate throughout the galaxy and strike fear, alarm, mild concern into the cruel hearts of our enemies. As a token of our gratitude for their inspiring commitment to spreading managed democracy, we have waived the customary corpse helmet limb return transportation fee. Yours democratically, Department of Heroic Sacrifice Affairs, Ministry of Defense. So yeah, unsurprisingly, this ministry is not run with a lot of love, we'll say. Now that wraps up pretty much everything we know about Super Earth at this moment. If you want to learn any more about the enemies I mentioned in this video, I've got detailed breakdowns of them on my channel, and I'd love if you check them out. Beyond that, I'd love if you hit that like button down below if you enjoyed, and considering the subscribe button to stay tuned for more content like this. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.